projects just off the top of your head that stand out to you that might be good for us to research a little further? I mean, your project is so great. Are there any others that?
So again, my advisor, Professor Tapan Parekh, he has a bunch of projects. The class that I described that he offered for the first time a couple of years ago, that has been kind of churning out project after project, which is doing really well. I know that some students who are about to enter the second year now are in Mexico working on a project related to fair pricing of coffee beans or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but there are a number of projects like that in the use of technology for development, and even otherwise these were not my areas of focus, but the whole privacy policy. Deirdre Mulligan and her students are doing a lot of interesting work. For example, an alum of the iSchool recently testified in a congressional hearing, the whole Google Facebook thing. He did that, and so that is the kind of expertise that students here walk out with, and then they actually have an impact in the real world on policy and laws that are passed, and that is surely of interest to lots of people who probably want to come in. There's another student who's now, she's working with Ushahidi. Ushahidi is another project you should maybe look up, and she has started working with them, and yeah, I'm sure there are lots of examples that you can find.
Great. Okay, cool. So, Joss, do you have some questions?
Just a couple more sort of along those lines.
Do you want to sit over here?
Can you real quick just say for me your name? You know, my name is. I'm a graduate of the university.
Okay.
Looking at Maria.
Okay. My name is Thejo Kote, and I recently passed out with a master's degree from the School of Information at UC Berkeley.
Thanks.
Want me to just switch to you? Yes. So just kind of along the lines of what you guys were just talking about, I think a lot of people grapple with whether they should go back to school or try to do something in the real world. And it sounds like at the iSchool, you're actually doing both. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That was, for me personally, I had a well-paying job, and that was exactly a question that I asked myself. But again, there was this larger...
She had a good question, which is a great question. So if you could just throw in the beginning, you know,
what the question was.
Is the real world versus the world of academics.
Okay, so when a student has to make a decision about whether to come back to school, yeah, they have to consider whether it's worth it. Should they continue with a job or come back to school and lose out on, you know, stable income? That was a decision I had to make. And for me, it was a little bit easier because I also wanted the experience of, you know, coming to the Bay Area and working here, and so it was a pretty easy decision for me to make. But I can understand that that is a question that a lot of people have to grapple with. But at the School of Information, because a lot of the work that you do is so practical that you may not really, of course you will be giving up on your income, you're a student, and you know, you lose out on that, but in terms of practical skills that you gain that you can then just take right back to work with you, it depends on, you know, the classes you choose and the projects you work on. It could be as though you're just continuing in terms of your development of your own skills, and as a person, it's just a process and it just goes on.
So do you expect that the Next Drop project is going to continue?
It is already continuing, and two of my teammates have moved full-time to India. One of them quit her job, and that project is ongoing. We are working on a pilot with the water utility in that city where we have been doing a pilot for more than a year now, and that work is progressing. And since I was the main engineer who was building out that technology, I've stepped back a bit because I'm working on the startup now, but I've brought on board another engineer, a very smart guy in Bangalore, and he's spending a lot of time on it, and I'm kind of helping out wherever I can, and so that is progressing. And Next Drop, we have goals for, you know, the next 12 months, 24 months. We recently got a grant from the Knight Foundation, and they gave us about $375,000. So we have the funding we need to keep it going, and that is absolutely going to, you know, continue on the field for the next few years.
Congratulations, by the way. I saw that on the website. So can you talk a little bit about the fact that you can just sit behind a computer in the Bay Area and start a project that's going to impact millions of people's lives in the developing world? Like how technology is sort of powerful in that way?
The role of technology in development is something that has always fascinated me, because historically, if you look at it, the opportunity to have the greatest impact with, you know, arguably a little bit of work is through technology, right? And you just do something once and do it right, and the potential it can have to impact people's lives all over the world is huge. And that was always, as an engineer, that's always something that fascinated me and part of what motivated me to work on Next Drop. And it is absolutely interesting. If you think about it, all of the technology companies that come out of Silicon Valley, it is especially these days when infrastructure is so cheap and you can scale things and everything is available on demand, the ability of technology to keep transforming lives, especially in the developing world, that just keeps increasing. And the amount of impact per unit of work, I think compared to every other field, technology has that big advantage. And you can just, two guys, a laptop, write software and possibly have a big impact on people's lives on the other side of the world. And that's just magical to me, and that's what, you know, makes it so enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would you say to people who say that technology is just making our lives more complicated?
I don't, again, I don't really know what to say to that. Maybe in the developed world that's a problem, and but the way I see it, there is so much opportunity for technology to make people's lives better for billions of people around the world that maybe that's a first world problem. I don't really care about that.
I love that. That's one of my favorite things to say to my friends when they complain about stupid things.
Yeah.
That's a first world problem. Let me see if I have anything else. Hang on. Oh, just really quick, what do you think the difference is between information and technology? Like, why is it called the School of Information versus the School of Technology? What's the correlation there?
Again, this is one of those existential questions that I don't think there's an easy answer to. But again, as I said earlier, I think it's called the School of Information. This is my interpretation, is because information is kind of the theme that is woven into all of the work that happens at the School of Information. So there is hardcore information retrieval and technology related to that, but design, usability, sociology, privacy, policy, but the thread running through all of those different fields is information. And because people along that whole spectrum, though they have different backgrounds and skills, all of them, at the end of the day, if you look at one thing that all binds them together, I think it's information. And today, especially as technology is proliferating so rapidly, even in the developing world, the importance of information, you can't understate that. And how do you manage that in the complexities, not just in the developing world, but even in the first world, in all the problems of once you're online all the time, or once you're connected all the time, the sheer amount of information that is generated that you have to manage and deal with, that is just going up exponentially. And the core focus of the School of Information, as I see it, is how to deal with, information and all the complexities that come with it. And that is my interpretation of why it's called the School of Information.
Awesome. That's all I got.
Okay, that's good. Hillary, are you good? It's fantastic, Thejo. Really.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, that was great.
Thank you. So you put it very well. I think I have a better, don't you guys feel?
Yeah,
Better
no, that was great.
understanding and